Welcome to the Dark Nook shop. I like to make monsters, and I try to do it cheap. So I've recently been sculpting some props and decorations with foam clay, and I'm just loving this stuff. It's much more workable than I expected. It holds detail almost as well as polymer clay, but it air dries very light and surprisingly strong. When foam clay is fresh, it has the consistency of marshmallow fluff, but the drawback to this stuff that I've found is if any air gets in, it starts drying out immediately. This package had a small leak, and so the top edge is all hard and unusable, and the rest of the clay is about halfway dry. But I still think that's usable. Hey, if you're still watching after the intro, and there's something you'd like to see me make in one of my videos, let me know down in the comments. I'm going to use this gelatin mold that I got at the dollar store for, you guessed it, $1. Now, honestly, I wouldn't trust this cheap plastic with actual hot gelatin. I wouldn't use this to make jello. But it's great for latex, and I think it'll work perfect for this clay. Now all I do is push it into the mold, try to push out any obvious air bubbles, and then set it aside to let it dry. I like getting these foam pumpkins from the dollar store and then, as cheaply as possible, trying to upgrade them to make them look awesome. So here's another cheap foam pumpkin, solid styrofoam with a vinyl covering. The first thing I do is draw the basic idea of the face and the area where I'm going to go all Ray Liotta on this pumpkin. So I carefully cut away the vinyl layer from around the eyes and mouth, and once it's all cut away, I hit it with some heat. Now do this in a well-ventilated area. Be careful. You just want to shrink the foam up a bit. You don't want to start a fire. Trust me, burning styrofoam is not something you want in your shop or your house or on your skin. Once that's done, I start adding some orange foam clay to the pumpkin to build up the facial features and the edges. Now notice how much softer this fresh clay is than the pink stuff. The clay thins easily with a little water or PVA glue. It can almost be brushed on like paint, and it still dries pretty solid and strong, even when it's really thin. But as it starts to dry, it starts holding detail even better, so you can smooth it or put a texture in it. And once the brain is dry, I'll pull it right out of the mold. It worked great. Super easy and super cheap brain that looks pretty good. But I can make it better. I trim it to fit, and I add some more clay tubes, some little worms. I blend them off with water, and they look just like the original brain, just adds a little more texture and a little more depth. Now while the other bits are drying, I'll make the eyes and the teeth and the guts. The teeth are pretty simple, just big yellow Frankenstein fingernails basically. It's pretty simple, pretty basic. I set those aside to dry. While the teeth dry, I add more clay to the edges along the top of the pumpkin, and I blend these off with a little water and a crochet hook, which makes a great sculpting tool. I also add more wrinkles and details in the face. Then I smooth it all out with a brush and some water. Once the teeth are done, I add them right on before paint, but I won't add the eyes or the guts until the very end. I start with the eyeball, then push a big dent into it. Then I set it aside to dry. Now I painted the eyes in several stages, but I wanted to keep all the eye stuff together in the video, so you may notice the paint on the pumpkin changing as we go through different stages of the paint on the eyes, but we'll get to the pumpkin painting in a few minutes. Once dry, I start to paint the basic colors and veins, the iris and the pupil, and then I coat it all in Mod Podge. When that's dry, I add some more paint to refine the details, and then I add another layer of Mod Podge. I want the eyes to have a nice glow, so I use yellow and metallic yellow for the iris. And the multiple coats of Mod Podge will give it a wet, glossy look. I also use this time while other parts are drying to start the pumpkin guts. I use this fiber string filler stuff and some wood glue with a little yellow paint added in to make the stringy pumpkin guts. I'm hoping they'll dry hard enough to hold up the top of the pumpkin, but still look gooey and wet like pumpkin guts. So I'm going to hang them over the edge of this little container so they dry in the right shape. The painting on this project starts with a black base, and then a series of oranges from darker to lighter. Then a final dark brown coat that's wiped away with a wet paper towel to get that sort of sunken aged look and pop the detail. Then I paint the brain with some brown and red washes and a heavy gloss coat of Mod Podge. The paint on some spots on this pumpkin keeps rubbing away, so I hit them with a little black and blend it off, so it'll just look like a scar or a blemish on the pumpkin. I also use some of the leftover wood glue to add some roots to the top of the pumpkin that will also serve as sort of a structural support to help hold it up. Once the paint is done, I seal it, and when that's all dry, I hot glue the eyes in place, and then I attach the pumpkin gut string, which turned out perfect. I trim it to fit, glue it in place, and it's all done. If you enjoyed this video and want more content with me talking, please, I don't know why anybody would want more content with me talking, but if you want more content with me talking, please like and subscribe and leave a comment. And now on to the beauty shots.